Video games, gaming, whatever you want to call it, interactive breed of media now has a bigger and more prominent role in the modern world. This has led to many questions. Does it affect people by making them violent? Can it help anyone? Can I play? Why are they so popular, and what's the point? To understand the effects and the future of video games, we need to start at the beginning. Games like Contra or the original Doom, although these games are old, they do have players wielding mighty weapons, especially guns, against armies of humans, aliens, and evil demons. Even in the early stages of the video game industry, these games proved incredibly popular with consumers. This trend has continued throughout the years with an annual franchise like Call of Duty or Battlefield.
As long as it makes sense to the overall game and the overall gameplay, I see there being no issue. If it makes thematical sense that it should be included in the game, then it shouldn't be an issue. However, there can be stuff that's included as over-the-top violence for the sake of gore because they believe it sells, which is not always the case.
So, why do you think developers prioritize violent games more than gameplay in now games, like the newer ones?
Okay, so if you give me some examples, and we'll be able to...
if you look at Mortal Kombat X,
yep.
The X-rays on there, it shows bones being split. And then that's the main focus now, because you see a lot more violent games. So say there's GTA, there's Black Ops, there's Borderlands, that could be classified violent. I mean, the graphics aren't HD, but they're still violent in there.
Okay. So in terms of Mortal Kombat's always been a violent video game. That's what it's known for. People gravitate towards that game because of that extreme levels of violence. So that's why that still sells. Grand Theft Auto has changed quite a lot between the earlier 3D versions, with its more sandbox cartoony violence, and now you've got sort of the realistic violence. Grand Theft Auto is meant to be there as a parody of Western civilization. So it's meant to reflect real life in a parody sort of way. In terms of violence, some would argue that it's been toned down since the early ones. However, in terms of weapons and stuff and guns within them games, they sort of have to be included for overall game in itself. Part of Grand Theft Auto is you are meant to be a criminal. If they took the weapons and stuff out, that wouldn't really reflect on the overall gameplay and the experience. For Black Ops as well, it's meant to simulate warfare. So if you look at World War II, if they took the weapons out of that Call of Duty game, it wouldn't reflect that sort of historic event. The futuristic ones are there to add the overall gameplay experience as well. I just think it depends on the overall game and whether it fits the style of the game as well. If it doesn't, then they shouldn't necessarily have the violence in there.
One issue video games face is that the media seem to have a negative view on any game that displays violence. Cases like that of Manhunt in 2003 created a media storms and mass commentaries over people's recreating deadly acts, but do they have a point?
It's American stores tomorrow, and it's making a lot of noise. There's an international outcry against it. Manhunt 2 is so violent, it's been banned in Britain. In fact, you may not want your kids to see the preview of this game in Daniel Seberg's Eye on Technology.
Just in time for Halloween comes one of the scariest video games ever seen. The objective? A mental patient tries to escape from a bizarre insane asylum using everything from a sickle to rip out a character's skull to a club to attack a police officer.
Going to lure them into the open and then chop them up.
As Scott Steinberg, a video game reviewer and author, demonstrated for us, The experience is even more intense using Nintendo's Wii game console, which gets players to act out the violence.
So the Wii has motion sensing controls, and therefore to stab, you're going to mimic a stabbing motion. To swing a sledgehammer or a shovel, you would do the same. Unfortunately, it's probably not something that you would want your kids to get a lot of practice on.
And that has parents groups outraged, worried it will be played by teens and younger children.